Today's topic is about VAR. Now, I can't think of any topic that I'm more passionate about than this one. I absolutely despise VAR, and I believe it's the beginning of the end for humans in football. Now, there's a wider context in which to consider this debate, and that's the automation of society. In supermarkets now, there are less humans on the checkouts. On the road soon, there'll be driverless cars. And football's no different. Football is a business, it's not a sport, it hasn't been a sport for several decades now, and it's not safe from this automation. There will be cost cutting, there will be ways to make it more efficient, and VAR is just the beginning of such a process. So just a couple of the mainstream points that you might have heard. Yes, VAR will slow the game down. Eventually it'll be more like American sports, and I think it's clear to see now for everybody that there'll be advertisement breaks every time there's a VAR review. Let's say there'll be a 90-second gap, and it'll be a chance for the betting companies to put up the odds for the next goal scorer. That much seems obvious. Also, something that hasn't quite been picked up on enough is that I think supporters will stop celebrating goals. I can see an incident in a big cup final where everybody's celebrating wildly, and then it gets pulled back for a throw-in that should have been given 17 seconds ago, and people will feel stupid, they'll feel like fools, and eventually over time you'll stop celebrating with passion that live moment where the ball hits the net, because you won't want to look stupid. And essentially the biggest moments in each match will be celebrated on replay. That's what you'll be doing. You'll be watching the replay of the moment and then celebrating after. And it's going to take away that live element, that real passionate sensory perception that you enjoy about football. That will be removed, and you'll essentially be watching the game on replay even though you're there in the stadium. So those are just a few points to consider, but let's get down to the real nitty-gritty stuff. Over the last few years, I've listened to several debates, well, all of the debates on VAR, and there's one premise that gets consistently trotted out which justifies its use. And it goes something like this: if we can use technology to improve the game, then we should. Right? I'll say it again. If we can use technology to improve the game, then we should. Right? Now remember that premise, because it's key to everything, and if you follow it through to some of its possible conclusions, it's absolutely frightening what this could mean for the game over the next 50 years. The end of humans in football, I'm telling you people. Right, so there's one area that I agree VAR should be used, and that's goal line technology. Now there's a reason for this. Goal line technology involves no subjective human opinion. It's a matter of fact. It's about whether a sphere crosses a line in its entirety. It either is or it isn't. It's a matter of geometry and physics. It involves no subjective human opinion. And for that reason, I'm quite happy for the technology to make the decision. But every other facet of the game involves some subjective human interpretation. And therein lies the problem. Humans are fallible. Humans are erroneous. We're the ones that make mistakes. And if you want to improve the game, like in the initial premise, if technology can improve the game, then we should use it. How can we do that? Wipe out referees, wipe out officials. I'll give you an idea. I've proposed something called a DTA, a Digital Tackling Assessment, and it works like this: DTA. Every summer there'll be a panel of ex-referees, and they will be ex because they'll be out of a job. There'll be a panel of physicists, ex-players, people that understand the software, and they'll all sit around in a room together and they'll design a tackling scale. Now at one end of the scale will be the most perfect tackle conceivable, lovely sliding tackle where he takes all of the ball, and at the other end of the scale will be the worst tackle imaginable. Absolute 2-footer, knee-high, certain leg breaker. Now everywhere in the middle will be the possible range of tackles, and somewhere will be the boundary for a foul. Now at every stadium this software will be implemented, and underneath the pitch will be thousands of tiny little sensors. You'll have every square inch of the pitch covered by sensors. Now at the start of the game the players will weigh in like in boxing fights, so you'll have their height and their weight. You'll have the diameters of the pitch, so you can measure speed and distance over time. And every time there's a physical collision, we'll run the incident through the software, and the computer can make the decision for you. And you'll get perfect consistency every time. So when Eden Hazard gets taken out on the halfway line at 11 miles per hour from a certain angle, studs showing, it will give the same decision as when Mesut Ozil receives the same treatment next week. Every time there's a similar incident, you'll get a similar result. There'll be no inconsistencies. It won't matter about whether the referee got a lack of sleep the night before, whether he had an argument with his missus. All of that stuff makes a difference in human decision making. None of that will come into play. The machines can make the decision for us, and it'll be the same consistent decision every time. And that's what we want, isn't it? A perfect, efficient, error-free game. No debate, nothing to talk about. Is that what we want? Not at all. Sounds absolutely boring to me. It will take away all of the passion and all of the human element involved in the people's game. I'll take it a step further. The DTA is just the start. What about robot footballers? Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, listen to this. We recently saw the FIFA World Cup. Now, for those of you that don't know, and I didn't, it seems that the fastest growing industry in the world now is where people watch other people play computer games, and football's no different. 29 million people watch the FIFA World Cup. 29 million people are prepared to watch a human control a robot to see how good the robot is at football. Okay? Now, this could easily make its way into the mainstream game. And let's remember our initial premise. If we can use technology to improve the game, then we should. Well, I've got a way that we can improve it. Robot strikers. They'll never have a bad first touch. They'll never pull a hamstring. They'll never moan about playing away at Burnley on a cold Tuesday night. You could easily trade in your third choice striker for a robot. That is a way that technology can improve the game. And that was our initial premise, remember? That's how the media justify its involvement. Absolute lunacy, people. I'm telling you, this is just the start. It's the end of humans in football. It used to be called the people's game. Don't let it become the robots' game. I'm Professor Footy, signing out.